We all encounter moments where someone's behavior seems off, leaving us wondering if they secretly dislike us. But how can you tell? In this article, we'll uncover 7 subtle signs that someone might be hiding their true feelings. Through the lens of Stoic philosophy, we'll explore how to handle these situations with grace, detachment, and understanding. From avoiding eye contact to subtle insults, this guide will help you recognize the signs and stay emotionally grounded. Let's dive in. Short or curt responses following up from the subtle signs of avoiding eye contact. Another red flag to watch for is when someone consistently responds with short, curt replies. At first, it might seem like they're just busy or distracted, but when this behavior becomes a pattern, it could be a sign that they're intentionally distancing themselves from you. Picture this. You're having a conversation with someone, trying to engage with them about a recent event or share a funny story, only to receive one-word responses or even silence in return. At that moment, you might feel that something is off. Your instincts may tell you that the conversation feels empty and that you're not truly being heard. In these moments, the discomfort is real. It's easy to internalize that something is wrong with you, to take these short answers as a personal rejection. But instead of letting this uncertainty cloud your emotions, imagine approaching it with a Stoic mindset. Stoicism teaches us to not take things personally but instead focus on our own responses. A Stoic would suggest that instead of reacting emotionally to someone's curt behavior, we observe it and remain unaffected. It's their behavior, not yours, and it's important to remember that you cannot control how others act, only how you respond. Short responses may stem from a variety of reasons, but when it's clear that someone is consistently giving you the bare minimum, it can indicate a deeper sense of disconnection or disinterest. It's like the moment when a friend you've known for years suddenly stops responding with their usual enthusiasm and replaces their thoughtful answers with clipped, indifferent ones. It feels like a shift, a silent distancing, and that's when the mind starts questioning, what happened? What changed? Perhaps it's the start of a relationship fading, or maybe the person is simply hiding their feelings of dislike. Imagine you've been friends with someone for a long time, sharing many good times. Suddenly, when you reach out to catch up, they answer with, yeah, sure, or I guess, leaving you with a feeling of unease. In those moments, the words don't match the energy, and the disconnect becomes painfully evident. A Stoic approach in this situation would be to accept that not every friendship is meant to stay the same, and to approach it with grace, knowing that your worth isn't tied to how others respond. Rather than feeling hurt or frustrated, a Stoic would focus on the present moment, on their own peace, and on the importance of maintaining a balanced, rational approach. If you find yourself receiving these short replies, it's important to step back and not allow their behavior to stir up unnecessary emotional turmoil. Your inner calm is more valuable than getting caught up in someone else's shortness. In these cases, the best thing to do is to remain composed, not overreact, and allow the situation to unfold without forcing it. In the end, while their brief responses may sting, they also serve as an opportunity to practice emotional resilience. It's about accepting the situation without bitterness, and remembering that you can't control others' actions, only your own responses. This is the essence of Stoicism, to remain unshaken in the face of uncertainty, and to focus on cultivating your own peace, no matter what others choose to do. Body language that shows discomfort building off the previous sign of short and curt responses. Body language can often reveal what words might try to hide. When someone dislikes you but is trying to conceal it, their body language may offer a clearer picture of their true feelings. The subtle cues, like crossed arms, avoiding physical proximity, or an unwillingness to face you directly, may seem insignificant, but when combined, they can paint a telling story. Imagine a situation where you've been talking to someone, and instead of leaning in or engaging with you, they take a step back, fold their arms, or look at the floor rather than making eye contact. This behavior feels cold, distant, and unwelcoming. It leaves you questioning the connection you thought you had. I remember once meeting an old friend for coffee after several months apart. When we sat down, the conversation started out fine, but there was something strange about their posture. They kept leaning back, arms tightly crossed in front of them, avoiding my gaze. Every time I tried to make eye contact, they quickly looked away. At first, I brushed it off, thinking they were just having an off day. But as the conversation went on, the signs became clearer. They were physically distancing themselves from me in every way possible, and I could feel the coldness seeping in. It was a strange feeling, like I was sitting with a stranger, despite the years of friendship we shared. In those moments, it's easy to feel rejected, as if you're somehow responsible for their discomfort. But Stoic philosophy encourages us to observe rather than react impulsively. It teaches us that body language is just one aspect of human interaction, and that while we can't always control how others behave, we can control how we perceive and respond to their actions. A Stoic would focus on remaining calm, not allowing someone's body language to stir up anger or resentment. They would recognize that people's discomfort often stems from their own inner struggles and is not a direct reflection of our worth or actions. The key is to not internalize this physical rejection. The crossed arms and lack of engagement might have nothing to do with you. It could be the result of their stress, discomfort, or even a personal issue they are grappling with. In these moments, a Stoic would remind themselves that they can't control others' emotions or actions. Instead, they can only focus on their own responses. By not reacting emotionally to the body language, we preserve our own peace and maintain a sense of inner calm. Think of it as a chance to practice patience and understanding. When someone is physically withdrawing, a Stoic would not push them further or try to read too much into the situation. Instead, they would acknowledge the discomfort, accept it, and move forward without letting it impact their own sense of well-being. In the end, body language speaks volumes, but it doesn't have to define the story we tell ourselves about our relationships. A Stoic would choose to keep their inner balance intact, regardless of how others act on the outside. Passive-aggressive behavior continuing from the subtle signs of discomfort conveyed through body language. Passive-aggressive behavior is another sign that someone might be hiding their true feelings of dislike. Unlike direct expressions of anger or frustration, passive-aggressive actions are more elusive and difficult to pinpoint. They often manifest as sarcastic remarks, backhanded compliments, or the subtle undermining of your efforts. These behaviors leave you feeling confused, unsure whether the person is genuinely upset or just being playful. I remember a time when I noticed a friend constantly making snide remarks about my recent achievements. After I'd shared some exciting news about a promotion at work, they smiled, but the words that followed stung. "Oh wow, you're moving up in the world, huh? Must be nice to have such a cushy job," they said. At first, I wasn't sure if they were joking, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized it wasn't just playful teasing, it was passive aggression. They were masking their true feelings of resentment behind a facade of humor, and I was left feeling unsettled, unsure of where I stood. Passive-aggressive behavior can be incredibly hard to decipher because it doesn't always show up in overt ways. Instead of directly confronting a problem, the person chooses to express their frustration in more subtle, indirect manners. It could be as simple as agreeing to plans but showing up late or offering to help but then doing a half-hearted job. The challenge is that these actions don't scream dislike, yet they leave you with a lingering sense that something isn't quite right. In such situations, Stoic philosophy teaches us to observe, not react. It's tempting to confront the person and ask them outright what's going on, but the Stoic approach would be to remain calm and not let the passive-aggressive remarks throw us off course. Recognize that this behavior is more about the other person's inability to express their emotions directly than about you. Instead of reacting with anger or frustration, a Stoic would choose to focus on the bigger picture and maintain their own peace of mind. I've learned that when faced with passive-aggressive behavior, the best response is to rise above it. It's easy to get caught in the web of sarcasm and indirect jabs, but a Stoic would take a step back and see it for what it truly is, an expression of someone else's internal struggle, not a personal attack. In those moments, we have the power to decide how we want to respond. Do we give in to the emotional chaos, or do we take a breath, let the words roll off our shoulders, and remain focused on what we can control? By practicing this kind of emotional detachment, we not only protect ourselves from unnecessary conflict, but we also preserve our peace. Passive-aggressive behavior may be uncomfortable, but it's an opportunity to practice Stoic virtues like patience, self-control, and wisdom. We can choose not to take the bait, to not let these indirect attacks disrupt our inner calm, and to continue moving forward with confidence and grace. Avoiding time together building off the passive-aggressive behavior we just discussed. Another sign that someone may be hiding their dislike for you is their tendency to avoid spending time together. Whether it's canceling plans last minute, frequently being too busy, or simply not initiating any form of connection, this avoidance can leave you feeling ignored or undervalued. You may find yourself questioning if you've done something wrong, wondering why they seem to withdraw at every opportunity. I recall a time when I was close to someone who used to be a regular part of my social circle. We would often hang out, grab coffee, and chat for hours. But over time, I noticed a shift. Every time I suggested meeting up, they'd give an excuse. I've got too much going on this week, or maybe next time, I'm really tired. At first, I thought it was just a busy phase in their life, but when it started happening more and more, the distance between us became glaringly obvious. The same person who once sought out my company now seemed to avoid me altogether. It was a painful realization, but I couldn't ignore the fact that the effort was no longer there on their side. Avoiding someone may not seem like an overt act of dislike, but it can be a clear sign that they are withdrawing for a reason. Stoic philosophy offers a calming perspective in such situations. Instead of reacting with hurt or confusion, a Stoic would remind themselves that the other person's behavior is not a reflection of their worth. People grow apart, relationships evolve, and sometimes, people just don't want to spend time together anymore. The key is not to internalize their behavior or take it personally. In moments like these, a Stoic would focus on what they can control, their own actions and reactions. There's no sense in chasing after someone who's consistently pulling away. Instead, the Stoic would choose to preserve their own dignity and inner peace, not seeking validation from someone who no longer values their company. This is where emotional resilience comes into play. By understanding that life is full of ebbs and flows, and people's choices often have nothing to do with you, but rather their own needs, desires, or limitations. Instead of obsessing over why they don't want to spend time with you, the Stoic would shift their energy towards things that are within their control. They would seek out meaningful connections elsewhere, focusing on relationships that nurture their growth and contribute positively to their life. By letting go of the need for constant companionship from someone who avoids you, you create space for new, healthier interactions. In the end, while it may sting to realize that someone you care about is pulling away, it's essential to remember that their avoidance isn't an indictment of your character. It's an opportunity to practice Stoic virtues like acceptance and emotional detachment. By embracing this shift without bitterness, you can move forward with grace, knowing that your worth is not defined by someone else's decision to spend time with you. Subtle insults or backhanded compliments. Picking up from the previous point about someone avoiding time with you, another clear sign that someone may be hiding their dislike is the presence of subtle insults or backhanded compliments. These remarks can leave you feeling disoriented, as they often sound like compliments at first but carry a hidden sting. It's a fine art of disguised negativity, and it can be hard to spot unless you're paying attention to the underlying tone. I had a friend who, after we spent some time apart, would often comment on how lucky I was to have the life I had. At first, I thought it was just a casual remark, a nod to my recent accomplishments. But as time went on, I began to realize the way she said it wasn't as supportive as it seemed. "It must be nice that you can afford to travel so much. Some of us just have to work all the time," she'd say, with a forced smile. It wasn't just an observation. It felt like a jab, a hint of jealousy veiled in what appeared to be a compliment. At first, I brushed it off, telling myself it was probably nothing, but the frequency of these backhanded comments started to chip away at my confidence. These subtle jabs often leave us wondering if we misinterpreted the situation. Did they mean to insult us, or are we just being sensitive? The key difference lies in the underlying tone, the way something is said, rather than just the words themselves. A Stoic approach in these situations encourages us to not internalize these comments, as they are often more a reflection of the other person's internal struggles than of any real fault on our part. Backhanded compliments are often rooted in passive-aggressive behavior or jealousy, emotions that the Stoic philosophy teaches us to understand, but not be ruled by. Instead of reacting emotionally or defensively, a Stoic would take a step back and observe the situation without judgment. The goal isn't to get drawn into a confrontation or defend yourself against these subtle digs, but to rise above them, not allowing them to disturb your peace. Imagine hearing a comment like, "Wow, you actually look good today. Who knew?" It feels like a compliment, but the underlying insinuation is that you don't usually look good. In a moment like this, it's easy to feel the sting and want to retaliate, but the Stoic response is different. The Stoic would calmly acknowledge the situation without taking it personally, understanding that this remark is not about your value but about the other person's emotional state. At the end of the day, the Stoic view on these backhanded compliments is simple: don't let them define you. When someone tries to undermine your achievements or appearance with a disguised insult, take a deep breath and choose not to respond with defensiveness or anger. Their words have no power over you unless you give them that power. By focusing on your own sense of self-worth and not allowing these comments to take root, You remain in control of your emotions, preserving your inner calm and your dignity. General indifference or lack of effort, building off the subtle insults and backhanded compliments we just discussed. Another clear sign that someone is hiding their dislike is when they begin showing general indifference or a lack of effort in maintaining the relationship. This is perhaps one of the most difficult signs to deal with because it's not always obvious, and it can leave you feeling invisible or unimportant. Unlike overt rejection or hostility, indifference can feel like a slow emotional fade, where the effort once put into the relationship slowly disappears, leaving you questioning what went wrong. I once had a close friend who, over time, seemed to lose interest in our friendship. We used to text each other regularly, share updates, and make plans. But one day, I noticed that their replies became slower, more distant, and at times, non-existent. I tried reaching out a few times to make plans, but each time, I was met with vague excuses or a complete lack of response. At first, I told myself that they were just busy, that life happens. But after a while, it became clear that the effort was one-sided. I began to feel like I was trying to keep something alive that they no longer cared about. It was a painful realization, and what stung the most was the silence, the lack of care to even acknowledge the change in our dynamic. This indifference can be even more hurtful than direct confrontation because it's harder to pinpoint the cause. There are no clear signs of dislike, but the absence of effort speaks volumes. When someone is no longer interested in engaging, checking in, or making an effort to connect, it often indicates that they've emotionally checked out. Instead of attacking or confronting you, they simply stop trying, leaving you feeling abandoned and unsure of how to proceed. But here's where Stoic philosophy offers valuable guidance. Instead of allowing this indifference to fuel feelings of rejection or anger, the Stoic approach would be to accept the situation for what it is. People's feelings and priorities change, and while it's natural to feel hurt, it's important to remember that we cannot control the actions of others, only our responses. A Stoic would not dwell on the silence or chase after someone who is no longer investing in the relationship. Instead, they would focus on what they can control: self-improvement, inner peace, and the pursuit of more meaningful connections. In such situations, the Stoic approach would be to let go without bitterness. People come and go in our lives, and relationships evolve or fade. By accepting this reality, we free ourselves from the emotional burden of trying to force something that no longer exists. A Stoic would understand that this lack of effort isn't a reflection of their worth, but a natural part of life's ebb and flow. Rather than seeking validation from someone who no longer makes an effort, they would turn inward, focusing on their own growth and well-being. In the end, general indifference or lack of effort is a subtle but clear sign of someone's hidden feelings. Rather than internalizing it or reacting with frustration, the Stoic response is to acknowledge it calmly, accept what's beyond your control, and move forward with dignity. Your worth is not determined by the effort someone else puts into a relationship. It's about your own self-respect, and knowing when to let go and allow space for new, more fulfilling connections. If you found yourself nodding along while reading these signs, then we're sure this video hit home. Relationships can be tricky, and understanding the signs of hidden feelings can truly empower you to navigate them with grace and wisdom. But now, it's your turn. Have you ever experienced these signs? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get the conversation going. Speech balloon, your experiences matter, and we'd love to hear from you. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, red heart, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. And hey, if you want more insights on navigating life's ups and downs, be sure to check out our other videos. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Stay connected, stay wise, and keep growing. Seedling.